The fire ripped through room 203 before anyone had time to scream. Thick smoke swallowed the hallways of Willow Creek Elementary. Lockers melted, windows burst. Panic erupted like a storm, but one room remained silent. Inside, a 7-year-old boy lay motionless, too far gone to cry, too late to escape. No one was coming. Not the teachers, not the firefighters, except one woman. She wasn't trained. She wasn't called. She was the janitor. And when that boy opened his eyes again, years later, he didn't remember her face. But he remembered the fire, and the pain, and the rage that burned long after the flames died. This is the story of the woman he forgot, and the day he came back powerful, angry, and determined to tear down the place she called home. Before we dive in, let me ask, have you ever spent your whole life resenting someone only to find out they were the one who saved you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're listening. It started just after 9 p.m. in the West Wing dormitory of Willow Creek Elementary. Most kids had already changed into pajamas, brushing their teeth, trading secrets across bunk beds. But in room 203, the smoke came first. Thick, silent, creeping under the door like a thief. By the time the alarms screamed, it was already too late. Children ran, staff shouted, chaos reigned. But in the middle of it all, a janitor named Evelyn Brooks ran the other way. She wasn't young. Her knees cracked when she moved too fast. Her breath shortened after a few steps. But none of that mattered. Evelyn saw the flames licking at the stairwell and still climbed them. She reached room 203. The handle scorched her palm, but she forced the door open with her shoulder. Inside, smoke choked the air. A boy lay unconscious by the window, face gray, chest barely rising. She didn't pause it. She didn't scream. She wrapped him in her coat, turned her back to the fire, and held him like he was her own. A beam crashed behind her. Her back seared from the heat. Her hands bled. But she didn't stop. Somehow, she carried the boy down 2 flights of stairs and out the emergency exit just as the roof collapsed behind her. She handed him to the firefighters and disappeared before anyone could ask her name. There were no news headlines, no medals. Just an old woman with burnt hands and blistered feet walking home in silence. No one ever saw her as a hero. In fact, after that night, most people forgot she existed. Evelyn Brooks lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on the south side of town. The wallpaper peeled, the heater rattled like it had something to say, and the only sounds at night were the hum of vending machines and the distant rumble of trains that never stopped in her part of the city. She had no husband, no children, no family photos, just a worn thermos, a Bible with frayed corners, and a single picture frame turned face down on the shelf. To the kids at Willow Creek Elementary, she was the janitor, with the limp and the navy beanie she wore year-round even in the heat of summer. She rarely spoke unless spoken to. No one knew her first name. Most didn't bother asking. But every morning at 5:30 a.m., Evelyn was already on campus, checking fire exits, wiping down windows, restocking first aid kits, and fixing broken stair railings before anyone noticed they were broken. No one paid her any mind. And Evelyn liked it that way. Because years ago, she hadn't been a janitor at all. She had been a nurse. A good one. A respected one. Until the fire. After the incident, Principal Walter Dalton had summoned her to his office. No one thanked her. No one asked what really happened. Dalton handed her a letter and said, "It's better for everyone if we keep this quiet. We don't want confusion or lawsuits." The letter blamed her for leaving her post. It claimed she'd failed to follow protocol, endangered lives. It was a lie, but it was a quiet lie, and Evelyn had learned long ago quiet lies always win. So she signed. She folded her life into a smaller version of itself, traded her medical scrubs for janitor blues, removed her last name from the staff directory, faded on purpose. She could have left the school, but she didn't. She stayed, because every hallway she mopped, every alarm she tested, every child she watched grow up was a way to pay back a debt she believed she never fully cleared. She saved one boy, but lost 2 parents. And in her mind, that was not a fair trade. So she kept sweeping, and the world kept forgetting. 20 years later, a sleek silver SUV pulled up in front of the rusted gates of Willow Creek Elementary. Out stepped Noah Carter, 30 years old, founder of Carter MedTech, multi-millionaire, face of Forbes, Next 100. A man who built fire detection systems for low-income housing, the very thing that could have saved his family. He stood still, staring at the crumbling brick facade like it had personally offended him. His assistant, a young woman in business casual and Bluetooth earpiece, hovered nearby. "Would you like to begin the tour now, sir?" Noah didn't respond. He was too busy listening to the ghosts. They were loud here. Every crack in the pavement, every broken window, every rusty pipe reminded him of what he lost. His mother's perfume, his father's laugh, a childhood that ended with smoke and screams. Willow Creek hadn't changed much, and that was the problem. Noah had bought the land quietly, under a shell corporation. The public story was, a tech philanthropist restoring failing schools. The truth? He planned to tear it all down. Inside the building, the air smelled of mildew and old floor polish. That's where he saw her. Down the hallway, hunched over a bucket, scrubbing a corner of tile like it held the cure for cancer. Samenavi Biani. Same lamp, same eyes calm, quiet, and strangely familiar. She didn't notice him. Not yet. "Excuse me," he said, clearing his throat. She looked up, gave a tired smile. "Watch your step, the tile's loose there." Then she turned back to her work. Noah stood frozen. A flicker of recognition stabbed through him, sharp and unwelcome. But he buried it. He had no space for nostalgia, no room for second-guessing. He made his way to the principal's office, still occupied by Walter Dalton, though now with grayer hair and a thicker necktie. "You've done well for yourself," Dalton said, shaking Noah's hand like they'd been friends all along. "We're grateful for the support." Noah sat across from him, unblinking. "There was a fire here. Years ago." Dalton's smile faltered. "Yes, a tragedy. There was a nurse on staff. What happened to her?" Dalton's eyes shifted. "She left. Wasn't reliable. Caused confusion during evacuation." "What was her name?" Dalton hesitated. "Evelyn Brooks." There it was. Noah's stomach dropped. The janitor in the hallway, the one scrubbing the floor like the world forgot her? That was Evelyn Brooks. And she had no idea the boy she saved had come back. With fire in his eye sand, her name in his hands. That night, Evelyn sat at her tiny kitchen table, staring at an old leather-bound notebook. The edges were cracked. The cover smelled like smoke. She opened to a familiar pagone she never skipped when the weight of memory felt too heavy. Written in faded red ink, "Room 203, child survived. 2 adults deceased. I did what I could. God knows I tried." She read the lines like a prayer. Not to remember, but to keep herself from forgetting what she still owed. 20 years ago, when the flames swallowed Willow Creek, Evelyn had been the only one who didn't hesitate. While others froze or ran, she moved. She had been a nurse back then. She knew fire protocol, knew triage, knew that with every second lost, lives slipped further out of reach. In room 203, she had found a boy, barely breathing, eyes rolling back. His parents had shielded him with their own bodies, but it hadn't been enough. She could only carry one, so she chose the living. She carried him through hell. But when the smoke cleared and the press arrived, the school didn't see a hero, they saw a liability. Principal Dalton made sure of that. "You abandon your post," he had said, folding his arms over his expensive suit. "If you speak up, you'll open the school to lawsuits. Families are grieving. Don't make this harder than it already is." So Evelyn signed the resignation, took the fall, and traded her nurse's badge for a mop bucket. She never corrected anyone when they called her just the janitor, because she believed she had failed. Meanwhile, miles away in a hotel suite overlooking the city, Noah couldn't sleep. He stared at his tablet, swiping through security footage and digital archives his assistant had unearthed from 2003. Therian old report from the local fire department. Unidentified woman approx. Age 50, carried unconscious male child from room 203 prior to first responder arrival. Witnesses describe janitor's uniform. He zoomed in on a pixelated still frame. The silhouette of a woman, hair tucked, arms wrapped around a small body, running through smoke like it was her home. The way she held him, he couldn't shake it. His chest tightened, his jaw clenched. He had built his empire on the ruins of that night. He had spent 2 decades burning with anger at a ghost. And now, that ghost had a name, a face, and the same quiet eyes that met his in the hallway that morning. Evelyn Brooks hadn't just saved him, she had carried his life while the world forgot hers. The next morning, Evelyn was called back to the principal's office. She didn't need to be told why. She knew the signs: the manila envelope on the desk, the rehearsed sympathy in Dalton's voice, the subtle way he didn't look her in the eye. "We're restructuring," he said, folding his hands. "The Carter Foundation wants to modernize. New systems, new staff. It's nothing personal." Evelyn nodded once. "I've prepared a small severance package," he continued. "And of course, a letter of recommendation should you need to seek alternate opportunities." She reached for the envelope, her fingers steady. "Thank you," she said softly. Dalton blinked, as if disappointed she wasn't crying, as if he'd expected some kind of scene. But Evelyn Brooks had weathered bigger storms than this, and some battles were lost in silence. Later that afternoon, Noah returned to campus for a routine walkthrough. That's what he told himself, anyway. He wasn't looking for her. He just ended up in the courtyard near the side exit. The sky was overcast, leaves danced in the wind, and there she was. Evelyn stepped out, carrying a canvas tote, worn at the seams. Inside were a few uniforms, a dog-eared notebook, and a steel thermos with a dent on the side. She paused near the bench outside the staff lot. No one followed. No one said goodbye. Noah froze behind the pillar of the building, watching her shoulders slump as she sat down on the bench. She reached up, adjusted her beanie with shaking fingers, and pressed her hand over her chest. Not crying, not broken, but empty. Noah wanted to step forward, say something, anything, but the words jammed in his throat. So he stood still, the guilt crawling up his spine. She was being dismissed from the very place she'd once risked her life to save. And no one even noticed. That evening, Evelyn walked into the back alley of a family-run diner and knocked twice. The owner, a stout Vietnamese man named Min, opened the door and squinted at her. "I wash dishes," Evelyn said. "I sweep. I don't complain." "You're how old?" 63. He shrugged. "Pays low. Hours are long. I've worked longer for less." He nodded once and handed her an apron. She started that night, hands in scalding water, scrubbing grease off plates that had seen more celebration than she ever had. And still she did it with care, because Evelyn didn't know how to stop giving, even when the world stopped asking. Noah walked into Walter Dalton's office the next morning with fire in his chest and Evelyn's name on his lips. Dalton looked up from his desk, startled by the sudden entry. "Mr. Carter, didn't expect you back so soon." Noah didn't sit. He dropped a folder on the desk, an old fire department report, the grainy image of Evelyn carrying him through smoke clipped to the front. "You lied." Dalton raised an eyebrow, calm but cautious. "I don't follow." Noah's voice was ice. "She didn't abandon her post. She saved me. She was the only one who acted that night, and you buried her." Dalton exhaled slowly. "That was a long time ago, Noah. Not for here." Dalton stood, straightening his tie like it gave him some sort of moral armor. "Listen, 2 adults died that night. The school was weeks away from inspection. The board was panicking. Lawsuits were circling. Reporters were sniffing around. You needed someone to blame," Noah said flatly. "I needed someone quiet," Dalton corrected. "Someone without family, without a lawyer, without connections." Noah's jaw clenched. "She signed the papers," Dalton continued. "No one forced her. She could have gone public. She didn't. She thought she failed." Dalton leaned forward. "Then let her believe that. Don't drag this out. Don't stir up old wounds just to play hero." Noah stared at him. "You think this is about me?" Dalton smirked. "You've built an empire on that fire. Your tech, your brand, from tragedy to triumph. You start digging too deep, you risk unraveling your whole origin story." Noah stepped closer. "I'd burn it all down if it meant telling the truth." Dalton's smile faded. "You're making a mistake." "No," Noah said. "You did. 20 years ago. And today, I'm going to fix it." He turned and walked out. Dalton called after him. "You go public with this. I'll tell my version. No one remembers the janitor, but they'll remember a millionaire who destroyed a school to feel better about his past." Noah didn't flinch. He didn't even slow down, because for the first time in 2 decades, he wasn't running from the fire. He was walking straight into it with purpose. And he wasn't coming out alone. The clatter of plates echoed from the back kitchen of Min's diner. Grease hissed. Steam rose. Evelyn stood over a sink full of dishes, sleeves rolled up, arms deep in soap and water. Noah walked in through the rear entrance, ignoring the startled looks from kitchen staff. When Evelyn turned and saw him, she stiffened. "I'm not looking for charity," she said flatly, drying her hands with a rag. "This isn't charity," Noah replied. "It's clarity." They stepped outside into the alley, same cracked concrete, same rusted dumpster humming with flies. Evelyn leaned against the wall, the weariness in her bones evident, but her eyes sharp. Noah took a deep breath. "I know it was you, the fire, room 203. You saved me." Evelyn looked down. "That was a long time ago." "Not for me," he said. "I've hated someone for 20 years, and it was you. I thought you ran. That you left my parents behind." Evelyn didn't flinch. "I tried to save all three of you." He swallowed hard. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I didn't save enough." Noah blinked. "You saved me, and lost your mother. And your father," she said, her voice cracking for the first time. "I had to choose. One breath, one body, one set of arms to carry. I chose the one that was still breathing." "You made the only choice you could," Noah whispered. "But it wasn't the one I wanted," she whispered back, "and I didn't want your name tied to my shame." Noah stepped closer, voice low but certain. "There was no shame, Evelyn, only sacrifice. And silence." She turned to him, her lip trembling. "Why now?" "Because I've built a life pretending I survived on my own," he said. "But I didn't. I survived because someone ran into fire when everyone else ran away. And that person deserves to be known." Evelyn shook her head. "You don't need to carry this, Noah." He held her gaze. "Maybe not, but I won't let you carry it alone anymore." The alley fell silent. Somewhere, a dog barked. A truck rumbled by. And in that moment, between two souls stitched together by ash and memory, something shifted. The past had never left either of them, but for the first time it didn't feel so heavy. 1 week later, the gymnasium at Willow Creek Elementary was filled to the brim. Teachers, students, donors, reporters, alumni. No one really knew why the event had been called on such short notice, but when the name Noah Carter was attached, people showed up. Noah stood on stage in a charcoal suit, microphone in hand. Behind him, a red velvet curtain concealed something tall and framed. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just spoke. 20 years ago, I almost died here, in room 203. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My parents didn't make it. I did. And for most of my life, I believed I survived because someone failed to act fast enough. He paused, looked out across the sea of confused faces. I was wrong. Noah turned to the curtain and gave a small nod. It slid open slowly. Behind it was a large oil painting Evelyn Brooks. Mid-stride through smoke, a child cradled in her arms, flames licking at the edges. Her face wasn't afraid. It was resolute. Gasps echoed through the room. Beneath the portrait, bold gold lettering read, "The Evelyn Brooks Library, in honor of the hero no one saw coming." From the front row, Evelyn sat frozen, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Tears welled but didn't fall. Her lips parted, but no words came. Noah continued. "For 20 years, this school let the truth rot in silence. Evelyn Brooks didn't abandon anyone who saved me. She carried me through fire, and then she was asked to leave. Not because she failed, but because silence was more convenient than justice." All eyes turned to Principal Dalton, whose face had gone pale. Reporters began whispering, pens scribbling furiously. "Today," Noah said, "we named this space after the woman who gave up everything and asked for nothing." He turned, walked down from the stage, and extended a hand toward Evelyn. "Come on, Miss Brooks. Time they saw you." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she rose. The crowd stood with her. Applause thundered. Some wept. Some cheered. Evelyn joined Noah on stage, looking out at the school that had once erased her. She stepped to the microphone, cleared her throat. "I didn't run into that fire to be remembered," she said. "I did it because a child needed help. That's all. That's always enough." She smiled, eyes glassy but proud. "And if you're ever wondering whether your small acts matter, just remember, Sometimes, the smallest voice carries the greatest weight. After the ceremony, things didn't go viral. There were no documentaries, no trending hashtags, no overnight fame. But that's exactly how Evelyn liked it. She didn't move to a nicer apartment. She didn't accept the luxury car Noah offered. She politely declined the book deals and interviews. Instead, she returned to Willow Creek this time not with a mop, but with a notebook and a classroom key. The school had offered her a part-time position, emergency response advisor, training students in basic safety, first aid, and how to act in a crisis. She didn't lecture. She told stories. Real ones. The kind that stuck with you long after the bell rang. Kids loved her. They called her Miss Brooks now. Not janitor. Not cleaning lady. Just Miss Brooks. And somehow, that felt more sacred than any award. Every Saturday morning, Noah showed up at her apartment with 2 coffees and a bag of pastries from a place she'd once mentioned loving. They sat on her balcony, overlooking a parking lot filled with cracked pavement and pigeons that had claimed it as home. They didn't talk business. They didn't talk tragedy. They talked about life, growing older, and how some wounds never scar the same way twice. One morning, Noah broke the quiet. "I built everything thinking I survived on my own," he said. "But I didn't." Evelyn smiled, her eyes soft. "None of us do." He paused. "Do you ever regret staying silent?" She looked out over the rail. "Number I regret believing I wasn't allowed to speak." He nodded slowly. They sipped their coffee. The pigeons cooed. Somewhere in the distance, kids played basketball. There was peace in the ordinary. Willow Creek's new library was the brightest room in the building. Its walls held not just books, but framed photographs of unsung heroes cafeteria workers, bus drivers, night custodians. Evelyn made sure of that. When a student once asked her, "Why would a janitor get a whole library named after her?" she simply replied, "Because I didn't do it for a name. I did it for a boy I didn't know, who grew up to remind me that I mattered." And it was a Tuesday morning when a 3rd grade class toured the new Evelyn Brooks library. Their teacher, a young woman barely older than some of the textbooks, paused by the bronze plaque near the entrance. It read, "The Evelyn Brooks Library, dedicated to the quiet heroes among us." One curious boy raised his hand. Was she, like a principal? The teacher shook her head. "Number. She was the janitor. But once, a long time ago, she saved a student from a fire. M." The kids fell quiet, brows furrowed in surprise. A girl near the back whispered, "Why would a janitor run into a fire?" Evelyn Brooks, standing just around the corner, smiled. She stepped into view slowly, wearing a pale cardigan and a name badge clipped to her chest. "I asked myself that same question once," she said gently. "And the answer I found was simple." The children turned to face her, eyes wide, because the world didn't need a title that night. It needed someone who wouldn't look away. Silence followed. And in that stillness, more powerful than applause, every child understood something their textbooks could never teach. Courage doesn't come with a salary. Kindness doesn't come with a spotlight. And sometimes, the person you least expect is the one who saves everything. Later that night, Noah sat alone in his office, wrapping up the final pages of his first book. Not a business book, not a tech memoir, but a story about pain, perception, and the woman who had rewritten everything he thought he knew about heroes. He scribbled the dedication by hand. "To Evelyn Brooks, the hands that carried me through fire, and the silence that still speaks louder than the world ever did." He closed the journal, looked out the window, and smiled. This wasn't the end of their story, but it was finally the beginning of peace. What part of this story stayed with you most? Have you ever misjudged someone to find out they were the reason you made it through? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And if this story moved you, give it a like. Share it with someone who believes only loud voices matter. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, hidden heroes, and second chances. Thanks for watching. And remember, even janitors can carry millionaires.